Hi there. I hope you've had fun choosing your piece that you're going to learn with me on this course. What we're going to do now is just to come up with a few ideas, thoughts and ideas on how to awaken the imagination, because this is vital to any kind of communication of music. It's not just a question of playing the right notes in the right time with the right dynamics. In other words, playing correctly never moved anybody. It may impress certain people, but it's not going to move anybody. And after all, this is what we want, isn't it? With musical communication, we want to express, we want to send a message. I've got a couple of books that I want to show you. The first book is probably one of the great all-time classics on piano playing. Heinrich Neuhaus, who was my teacher's teacher. Nina Svetlanova was a long-time student of Heinrich Neuhaus. And this book was in my local library when I was growing up, and I would take this book out regularly. Before I could even understand it, I would be reading it repeatedly. The very first chapter here, you've got a preface there, or he calls it in lieu of a preface, but the first real chapter here is entitled The Artistic Image of Musical Composition. He later follows it with chapters on technique and on tone and various other important things to do with piano playing. But the very first thing is the artistic image of musical composition, meaning what is it that the piece is describing? Why are we playing it? Not, oh, it's on some exam syllabus or my teacher told me to do it. But why do we want to play it? What do we want to express with it? So that's one very good resource that I would highly recommend. The other book is by Neil Ruttman. Excellent book here, Stories, Images and Magic from the Piano Literature. And this is filled with, I suppose, anecdotes or background research on what the composer may have said about it, what commentators were saying about a given piece. You've even got pictures, musical examples, and I'm just like randomly flicking through it and, just coming up with, here's a chapter on Debussy and the Interrupted Serenade, or La Sérénade Interrompue. And there's a little comment here from Alfred Cortot, who says this is a mocking nocturnal fantasy in the manner of Goya, expressing the diffident passion of a novio, his love songs under a closed window, his timid, peevish agitation at an unexpected sound, or at the passing of a noisy band of students in a street nearby. Heard above a swaying, sinewy strumming of guitars in a rhythm that throbs already through the pages of Iberia. Wow. And Marguerite Long, the great French pianist, says of this serenade, poor fellow, said Debussy, he keeps on being interrupted. So that's already just a few helpful thoughts about a particular piece. There's lots of pieces here that have similar or more detailed background. So the first thing I'm going to invite you to do is to imagine that you're in a cinema and you've got a movie screen in front of you. It's playing a movie, but there is nothing on the screen yet. You have to describe what it is you see in your imagination based on what you're hearing, the music. I'm going to play a little something here short. And as I do that, I would invite you just to imagine what's going on the movie screen. I'll tell you afterwards what the piece is, although there are no prizes for guessing. be interested to know what you came up with. But the last time I did this experiment, I got all sorts of similar images of it's raining, it's evening time, there's somebody walking down by a river with an umbrella and they're crying and they're feeling really sad. Did that match what you saw? Maybe you saw something different. But it's the third Gymnopédie of Erik Satie. Very atmospheric piece. So that is a good way to start with of perhaps when you listen to a recording of the piece, what is it describing? Maybe you could even write a few bullet points about what it is you hear. It could be moods, it could be a narrative, it could be pictures, images, it even could just be emojis or a sequence of feelings. It doesn't have to be very specific. But we do have to get in touch with the inner meaning of the music as we feel it, because everybody's going to feel it differently. In the Schumann's Album for the Young, in the original publication, there was some beautiful, what are they called? Wood carvings, I think, by Ludwig Richter. And we have here Knight Rupert. Now, Knight Rupert was this guy, Saint Nicholas, if you will, or Santa Claus, who in this particular legend would go around bringing the children presents at Christmas time. If they'd been really good, they'd get nice presents. And if they'd been naughty, they'd get lumps of coal. So you feel in this music, because you've got a little picture there that already gives you a bit of inspiration, but you can feel at the beginning of the music the sound of this guy, you know, chasing, presumably on a sledge with reindeer. I'm not sure how this particular Knight Rupert travelled, but maybe on a horse. So you can hear it. Is that him knocking at the door? I'm here. He goes on. So we're in a minor key. There's a kind of nervous energy about it. There's certainly a feeling of rushing about it. Then you get real knocks at the door. Now the middle section, these are the nice presents. Maybe this particular child is worrying, have I been good enough to get the nice presents, or am I going to get the coal? Can you feel there's a little bit of questioning and there, doubting, but all is well. I got something nice. So that's one possible story that you could come up with quickly. For that piece. Another piece in the same collection, this is the merry farmer returning from work, and the lithograph or the wood carving shows him with an axe on his back, or whatever those things are, scythe I think it is, wouldn't be allowed nowadays, but there he is walking in public with a great big scythe, and there's a child by him with his legs, and there's a little dog, and maybe you can hear certainly you can hear the happiness, because he's contented, he's had a good day's work. He's coming home to presumably a nice cooked meal, because we see a cottage in the background with a little smoke coming up the chimney. So we can hear perhaps the dog barking in the right hand. So I've got that image from the wood carving there, but we can make our own wood carving image about pieces. There's another piece of Schumann I'm just going to show you, and I might even finish with a more advanced one. This is called Einsame Blumen, or Solitary Flowers, from Waldszenen. The most exquisite little piece, sight readable in a way, but if you want to play it really beautifully, you have to work on sound and pedaling and tone color, tonal control. That's what takes the work. But again, what is the image? I have a very clear image of very delicate flowers, maybe one here, one there, on a mountainside, covered in dew. Early morning, perhaps we're in the Alps. The only thing missing from this image is Julie Andrews cavorting down the mountainside, but it is that sort of idea. Let me play you a little bit of it. So on. I could go on with my story there, but in the front of my mind is this image of a beautiful flower, and if you struggle to see it, then simply Google image search something like lonely flower or solitary flower or Edelweiss or something like that, just to give you a little bit of inspiration. There's another piece here that I've got by Max Reger, and it's called Reconciliation, or Versöhnung in German. And this is, well, it's from a set of pieces called From Youth, aus der Jugendzeit, from childhood, if you will. And this particular piece is to do with, you've got to imagine that you're in junior school and you've got a really good friend, and you said to your friend, I don't like you anymore. You know how kids do. And then later on, you kind of regret that. You think, actually, I do like them. I'm wondering what I can do to win back their friendship. How am I going to make friends with them again, or get them to make friends with me again? So we've got here a smile, a musical smile. We're in A major, and the piece begins with the major third on the top, which is a little smile, please, you know. Can you hear in that answering phrase the regret? Oh, can you feel it? And then again, please be my friend again. And then in the next section, we've got a little bit of dancing, perhaps. Perhaps this kid is trying to cheer up his friend with a little dance. And later there's a little bit of consolation. It's as though they were apologizing. Please forgive me. And now a little kind of coy dance. More of a dance. You see, there's a whole sequence of different images that are possible to picture from a piece like this. It's not enough just to be able to play the right notes with the composer's expressive markings. These have to mean something more. I was going to play you some more Schumann, and here it is. This is the F-sharp major romance that he wrote as a wedding present for his bride-to-be. The story goes like this. Clara, her father was Friedrich Wieck, the famous piano teacher, and he had forbidden Robert to marry Clara, and he'd sent her away and he'd sent him away, and they weren't allowed to communicate at all. And after a while, Robert Schumann had to take his future father-in-law to court, and a judge says, yes, they can get married. So this is all the celebrations for the marriage, and he writes this beautiful romance, and you can hear at the beginning the two thumbs on the inside of the texture are rather like this happy couple. You can hear them. I'll play just the thumb line. Contentment, right? Little passion. heard of it. It's the most beautiful love duet. And later, she's on her deathbed. We're going to fast forward several decades now. On her deathbed, she asks Ferdinand, her grandson, to play her this piece. And the piece ends with these two long notes that we had at the beginning, but as long notes. And then what we do is we wait for those sounds to fade and die away. And that, if we understand this, we can appreciate this. Those were the last sounds that Clara Schumann heard before she passed away. There's a lot of richness in that narrative. If we can tap into that and just research it a little bit. I do have, somewhere here in this pile, I do have the F-sharp minor sonata that he wrote for her at the time when Friedrich had said, go away, you can't see each other anymore. So he wrote a piece of music and published it anonymously because he wasn't allowed to write to her. But so she would have received this, not knowing what it was, but as soon as she opened it, she would have seen, there's my song. I'm looking at the second movement now. She'd written a song called To Anna, and Anna. It's this, I'll play. This is Robert Schumann quoting his hopeful bride-to-be's song. And you can hear this is absolutely exquisite sound world. It's a very delicate sound world in one long pedal. And it gets even more tender and loving a little bit later. Now here's Robert speaking. So again, a piece of music that if you were to open it and play it, you'd think, oh, that's lovely. But if you dig a little bit under the surface, you'll come up with a whole rich narrative there that will inspire you as you play it. So a couple of other thoughts here. This is a husband and wife thing again. This is Beethoven. Well, this is my idea anyway. This is Beethoven, and I'm looking at the Bagatelles Opus 33. It's a set of, how many are there? I always forget how many there are. There are 7 in the set, and this is the 6th one. Now, I imagine here a conversation between a husband and a wife. It's a domestic situation. So it's very innocent at the beginning, very charming. She says, yes, dear, I agree. And then they talk of something that must be quite painful for them. Listen. But they pass through that, and now everything's back to where it was. And that painful moment keeps coming back in the conversation. So this is how I bring this piece to life. It's a very simple piece. It's simple in the best sense of the word. I don't mean necessarily simple to play, but there's not so much going on other than this conversation with this painful thing that maybe they don't particularly want to discuss. So let's see where we are next. Yes, sometimes it's just a small thing that can inspire us. And I've got the Haydn Hoboken 50 sonata, the C major sonata, which has his only 2 pedal markings. He only ever wrote 2 pedal markings. He just calls them open pedal. So if I just play you a little bit, maybe just before the open pedal, there's this sonata. full of hijinks and humour and contrasts and laughter, actually. But when you come to this spot, open pedal, very mysterious. Wow. Surely we'd want to spend a little time there. We don't want to hurry over that. And then the only other pedal marking that Haydn left us was the next open pedal mark, which is, I've got my different score here. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. It happens to be bar 120. So again, we put the pedal all the way down and we hold it down and we just enjoy the blend of sounds. It's very unusual sound. Then he's back. Now, in my imagination, what happens here is based on history. The Broadwood Piano Company gave Haydn a room in their factory, somewhere in London, I've forgotten the exact place, but he had a room allocated for him when he visited, so he could go up there and he could compose. Now, he had never heard the English pianos before. The English pianos were much more resonant than the instruments he was used to, where on his pianos the dampers worked immediately as they do on ours. You know, you pick up a key and the sound stops. On the Broadwoods of the time, the sounds continued, which sounds like it's a negative thing, but it was just a feature of the instruments and just gave them extra resonance. So in my imagination, Haydn is sitting upstairs writing this sonata, the English sonata, and he's hearing these amazing pianos with their resonance, and he's thinking, I wonder if I could capture some of that in my sonata. Twinkly stars. And then he's back, he's out of his daydream, back into the real world. Who knows? That's probably not true, but it helps me to find something special to say when I get to that point in the sonata. Another famous piece, a popular piece, is the Grieg Nocturne. And we've got here, we've got a few words from Grieg himself. If we dig around, we will find these words. Night drew its veil over nature all around us, and a wonderfully gentle, mournful mood took hold of me. And he wrote that in 1865. And the nocturne begins. Let me give you a possible narrative. And see if this has any resonance for you. So we've got here a forest scene, and an eagle is perched high on a branch, and as evening falls, and you can feel the evening falling in the left hand. And here's the eagle. He calls. Now he does it again. He's getting a bit restless, and now he spreads his wings. Now he begins to fly. To rest. Now a nightingale. There's the eagle on a branch watching this nightingale. Now perhaps a lark or some other bird says, you think you can sing beautifully, listen to me. skies and all the creatures of the night start to move. You can feel the swooping. Wow, it's so magical. A waterfall. Now, much as I'd love to take credit for that story, it's actually Joe Sanderson's story. Joe was one of our tutees on the piano teachers course at UK a while back, and part of the assignment they had to do was to come up with an analysis and a narrative for the piece that they choose to play at the end, and this was hers. And I think absolutely stunning piece of work that she did there. So that completely brings that piece to life. And of course, the idea is that when we are playing, we're not worrying about, oh, I've got to lift my pedal there after the second bar. I've got to make sure my double notes are all nicely together and my forearm is aligned. All of that stuff is what we need to do as we prepare our performance, but that's not the be all and end all. What we want to do at the end is to have a rich and fertile imagination for the piece, which we communicate. And if we are engaged in communication from our imagination, so our audience, our listener, will pick that up. They might not come up with the exact same story that we've got going on, but they will come up with something. So this is what I'd encourage you to do now with your piece. And the way you can do this, and many things you can do: research your piece on Google, great place to start. Have a look at books such as Neil's Stories, Images and Magic from the Piano Literature. As you listen to recordings, don't do that when you're learning the piece, but before you learn, it's a good idea. See if you can make a few bullet point observations about what it is the music's expressing to you. Don't worry, because there's no one right answer and no wrong answers either. But just allow yourself to imagine. I think that's the point of this video. I hope it helps you, and I'm looking forward to hearing the pieces when we finally put them all together at the end. See you soon. Happy practicing.